Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is the update to the Off Balance Templar for the Lost Depths DLC. The build that has been designed to do as much AoE damage as possible while maintaining a decent amount of single target at the same time for the last 5 years. This has of course been updated and been buffed, but there aren't any major changes for those of you that are already using it. So if you are using this already, feel free to go to the timestamps and check out the rotation and the gear. But if you're new to it, everything's going to be explained. So first of all, we're going to go into the stats, get some buffs and bonuses on. Basically just a, don't need that, just a potion and a resistance bonus. So we are sitting on 35k max magicka, 24k max health, 14k max stamina. We're on 50% crit with 5.3k spell damage, which will go up. Crit chance will go up in a group, and also with our own buffs and bonuses that we have if we are in combat. We do have a glyph that will push us to roughly 6k as far as spell damage is concerned, but that will go up much, much higher with group buffs and bonuses, roughly around 7.2, something like that. Mag recovery is on almost 900, health recovery is on 400 almost, and stam recovery is not far off of 700. Our resistances, which just fell off, are sitting on a whopping 21k spell resistance and 18.3k physical resistance. Very handy indeed, as well as our spell pen and physical pen, which are both sitting on 4.456. If you have Alkosh in the room, alongside minor and major breach, you are capped. Very, very easy to get cap penetration against PvE enemies with this particular setup. You barely have to do anything. We are using 64 of our magicka points all into magicka, or tribute points all into magicka rather, and we are using the Thief Mundustone. We are of course using flat food, which doesn't show up properly in the character sheet still, but basically it's this stuff. Flat health, flat magicka. That will give you the most damage output for this particular setup, but if you want to go less damage slightly, but more survival and more recovery, then of course you can go with this. This is for people that can manage their own sustainability, and or if the group has loads of buffs and bonuses to apply that for you, so you don't really have to struggle too much for your resources. This is when you struggle with the resources or your group doesn't bring anything to help you. This will give you a little bit more recovery so you can maintain those abilities for a longer period of time rather than running completely dry all the time. This does give you health recovery, does give you mag recovery, but you'll get less health and damage. Depends on the situation though. So those are up to you. Now we're going to go into the skills. These are going to be explained in detail, obviously, but of course, if you've already seen all this stuff before and you don't need to understand how things work and you think you've managed to understand all of the patch changes, fair enough, skip to the gear. But if not, everything will be here if you need it. So first of all, we are using Purifying Light. This comes from the Dawn's Wrath skill line. Wrong skill line, and it's the third one you start off with as Backlash, but you need to turn it into Purifying Light. This will actually apply a small amount of magic damage first of all, but then while doing damage to the target for 6 seconds, this will calculate how much you've done, and a percentage of that will be returned as a big single target hit at the end. So this does release 50% of the damage that you've actually done. So it's really, really nice. Obviously that will cap out, but you can still crit it. And when the effect ends, you also put a heal on the ground every 2 seconds for the next 10 seconds for you and your group, but it's a small radius. So if you're within that, you will get heals. Maintaining that throughout your whole rotation means you're always getting heals up front, which we are, and you always get that extra damage boost. Barb Trap is very, very important for the build. This is in the Fighters Guild skill line. Last ability to unlock starts off as Trap Beast, morph it to Barb Trap. This initially will pop and do single target bleed damage to the enemy and immobilize them if they can be immobilized. Note, by the way, the bleed damage carries a status effect type. It doesn't mean it is a damage over time. The initial hit is a bleed damage physical hit that can apply a status effect. Now the secondary effect to it is damage over time, and that is also bleed damage, meaning that it can apply the status effect every second that it ticks, or every 2 seconds rather. This does last 20 seconds on target after the initial pop, and it will give you minor force the whole time it is active. So as long as you maintain this, you will constantly get that 10% increased critical damage for you against all targets. Now this does have a higher chance to apply status effects on the target versus any other bleed ability apart from rend and slashes, so you are likely to apply hemorrhage much more often than most. This means that the target, if they can be affected by minor mangle, which is a status effect, kind of secondary effect from hemorrhage, you will reduce their health amount by 10%. That works on anything that isn't a major boss or isn't a major ad that has kind of extra strength, if you like. They call them banner bosses or whatever you want to call them, or elites, anything like that. Anything that's potentially a big target can't be affected by this, but anything else can be. But the ability itself, damage over time, initial pop. And also, when you reapply this, you will just continue the damage that is already going from the dot, but you will get that initial pop again. So sometimes you might want to apply this before you swap bars just to get that initial pop and continue your DPS. That will make more sense when we get to the rotation. Now, Radiant Oppression is next. This is our main execute. You want to use this kind of around 40 to 35%. There seems to be a bit of a sweet spot for it. Anything higher than that, you will actually out DPS it with your spammable. So around 40 to 35% is kind of the sweet spot. This is very, very aggressive. It does damage per tick over a 1.8 second channel, and it will just get stronger and stronger and stronger the lower the target's health. This particular morph does actually do 500% extra damage at its lowest health and strongest point. The other morph of it still functions exactly the same, but instead of 500% extra damage, it can do 480% extra damage. Now, that is actually so close, you won't notice it. If you crit this or miscrit it, or crit the other or miscrit it, you can actually get roughly the same numbers depending on your buffs and bonus at the same time. There's really not much in it. But the other morph I would highly recommend, because while it does have a small reduction to damage overall, it does actually heal you for 20% of the damage done per tick. And this thing can crit, depending on buffs and bonuses, anywhere from 100k to 140k per tick, if you're lucky. If that happens, you're basically healing yourself to full every single tick of damage that you do. It's very, very powerful to have that amount of survivability at the same time as devastating the target that quickly. So I would highly recommend the other morph, but it's entirely up to you which one you choose. Just bear in mind, if you do choose this one, well, you get that tiny bit extra occasionally, you will have to rely on your heals a lot more in your group. So it's up to you. Now, next up, this did get changed a little bit. Adric's Spear, first ability to unlock, starts off as Puncture and Strikes, morph it to Puncture and Sweeps. Now, I know you've heard people on the internet saying jabs don't work no more. They do. There's nothing wrong with them. They just altered the timer on them, and they altered the animation, as well as the heal you get from it. So, before you would hit multiple targets, and each target you would hit, you would receive a heal from them. That is still there, but it's lower. It's now 34% of the damage done with this ability rather than higher. It was around 40. You can notice the difference with the new update. You can. But it does feel like the healer in the room is more relevant because they seem to be doing some work now. They feel like they are healing your missing health rather than healing your full health. So this isn't a negative. It does still help you survive, but it's not quite as powerful healing-wise as it was before. However, the damage is still incredibly high. The first target you hit will take more damage. The surrounding targets will take less damage, but you'll hit them all regardless. And this counts as AoE damage as well. So anything that's in front of you, you will just jab, 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 and everything takes damage. All the things you hit will heal you. All the things you hit, you'll do damage to. And the channel, instead of being 1 second, is now 0.8, which means it's a lot easier for everyday players to weave this in with their light attacks because the global cooldown is easier to apply. Before, people would try and channel the whole second, and they couldn't line it up with other instacast abilities exactly. Although there was still a 1 second timer, it got stuck sometimes. Now it does have a new animation. It's a lot more fluid, and it does feel much better inside the rotation, which means in our rotation now we can actually fire off an extra one. So up front we've got more damage. Anyway, that's your main spammable. Use it all the time until you get to 35 or 40% of the health of the target, and then start spamming Jesus Beam. Inner Light is on the bar for passives, nothing else. The passive bonus to the skill and the passive bonuses from the skill line. Put this on the bar, morph it from Mage Light to Inner Light, and leave it there. Never activate it, you don't need to. It gives you Prophecy and Savagery on the bar, plus 5% increase to max Magicka. Done. Dawnbreaker is also here for passives, but you can activate it if you want the extra weapon and spell damage in an emergency situation. If you don't have enough ultimate to fire your back bar, you can fire this, you will do damage with it, and you will increase your overall damage for all the skills that you'll be using in the next 20 seconds. So during a really fast execute, if something's about to die, fire this off, you'll get some extra damage out of your Jesus Beam. Now, back bar, nice and simple. Inner Light, again, we've double barred this for a very good reason. One, I want to make sure that we keep those buffs and bonuses on both bars. And two, so technically 2 reasons, we can't fit a damage shield. Now, if you want to fit a damage shield from the light armor skill line, you can go with Dampen Magic or Harness Magicka to protect yourself in extreme situations where you may need it, if you want to, but at the moment it won't fit. Because the way that we're set up, we're using 4 light and 3 medium. You need 5 light in order to use this. You can, if you choose to, alter the weight of your monster set on this build and allow for 5 light, but you will find in most situations, while your recovery might be quite nice, you will actually overpen as far as debuffing is concerned versus the resistance of the target if you have buffs and bonuses supplied by your group. And at the same time, you won't get the extra weapon damage and spell crit and all that good stuff from the medium piece that we put on to optimize it. So if you want the protection, you need to drop 1 medium and replace it with a light. If you don't need the protection, double bar and a light, you're done. Now, we are also using Wall of Elements, unstable Wall of Elements, in fact. Drop this on the ground, and it will do damage over time to targets caught inside of it, and it will base the damage on the weapon you are holding. Now, strictly speaking, this build is called Off Balance for a very good reason. It is designed to allow you to supply Off Balance on tap for the group while actually not changing anything in your build or setup. It's all done for you. You just apply your rotation, and there it is. Now, the way to apply that is to make sure that your back bar weapon is a lightning staff with a shock glyph. If you do that, your shock glyph has such a high status chance, especially based on our front bar weapons, which will benefit it when it fires, that we can guarantee that the enemy will be concussed. While they're concussed inside a lightning wall of elements, which is this, they will go off balance. So they'll have 7 seconds worth of everyone getting extra heavy attack damage, extra resources, and all that good stuff. But if someone in your group is already supplying Off Balance, you don't need to, in which case you can take advantage of the flame staff and therefore receive roughly the same amount of damage output as you would with a lightning staff. But if the target ends up burning inside that wall will do more damage. So in those situations, you can enhance the damage that you do. And of course, if you've got a DK in your group, you can buff that fire damage as well. So flame damage with a flame glyph, or flame staff with a flame glyph, if someone in your group was already supplying Off Balance. Lightning staff with a lightning glyph if somebody isn't supplying Off Balance. There is a difference there. You will notice it in combat if you're paying attention to those buffs and bonuses. But anyway, the choice is yours. So if you're using 2 of these, by the way, 1 go lightning, 1 go fire, you're done. Now, this was changed. This in the past was Solar Barrage, where it gave us damage over time, basically. It now lasts 22 seconds, which is insane, but they used to last a lot less. That would do damage every 2 seconds, and it would give you Empower. You can still use this if you prefer, but Empower got changed. Empower now only increases heavy attack damage. It doesn't increase light attack damage. So we are losing out on that buff and bonus now, so we don't really need this skill. We're going to take advantage of another damage over time, which is stronger on its own. The reason this is less damage than other skills per tick is because you benefit from that constant Empower. But we're going to use a skill that doesn't have that. Go into Restoring Light, unlock Cleansing Ritual, morph it to Ritual of Retribution. This also was altered. It now lasts 20 seconds. It will do damage every 2 seconds. You could argue that it looks exactly the same damage. It's not. Every tick, it will increase by 12%. So you want this to last its full duration. 12-meter radius, massive damage over time. Everyone inside of it's going to get hit, and your group has a purifying synergy as well. So they can activate it, remove harmful effects from themselves, and heal. So it's really, really handy. And don't forget, of course, we now have a cleanse in our arsenal for ourself as well, because when you activate it, you immediately remove 2 harmful effects. So you don't have to shout for purges or cleanses from other people anymore. It's part of your rotation. Now, next up is Channeled Focus. This is going to sit here for the remainder of your build. Basically, you don't need to change this for anything else at any point in time for any reason, unless maybe you want to put Crush and Shock in there somewhere for extreme situations where someone can't be bothered to interrupt. But anyway, put this on your bar and activate it, and it will give you 25 seconds worth of Major Resolve. So big resistance buff for you. While you're standing in it, you will heal every 1 second, and it scales off your max health. So if you're in a group with lots of buffs and bonuses and your health goes up, your heal from this will go up. While not standing in it, you don't get the heal, but you still will get the resistance bonus, and you will still get the Magicka recovery. You get 424 magic back every 1 second. That is 484 recovery on top of the 870-ish that we've already got. Absolutely bonkers. Do not let this run out, both for survival and recovery sake. Blazing Spear, very, very simple. Also from the Adrix Spear skill line, much like Puncher and Sweeps. Starts off with Spear Shards, morph it to Blazing Spear. Throw this up in the air, it will land on the target where you place it, and it will do magic damage in area of effect, which does hit very, very hard. And it will do damage over time every 1 second for 10 seconds. But bear in mind, this also follows the Adrix Spear passives, and one of your members in your group can actually pick this up and restore Magicka or Stamina, whichever the 2 of their max resources is higher. So this is a resource gain for the group, plus a damage over time for you. Yes, of course, you can take advantage of other dots if you prefer, but just bear in mind that initial hit is actually quite a substantial one. So while the dot is low, the hit is really hard. And finally, the ultimate. This is Shooting Star. This is very, very simple. Goes into the Mages Guild skill line, and you have to unlock lore books. You have to find them all and get to level 10 to buy this. If you don't have this, or you don't want it, or you can't be bothered to farm lore books, that's absolutely fine. You can swap this out for the Destruction Staff ultimate. Obviously, that will take on the form or element of whichever staff you're using. Devastating ultimate, nothing wrong with it, use it all you like. But if you can get this, it's a game changer. This, for some reason, still has not been nerfed, and it really needs to be. It's bloody cheap, it hits really hard, it's got damage over time, single target, area of effect, stun, the lot, and it gives you 12 ultimate back for every single target hit. If you're in a big crowd of enemies, you can spam this. It's dirty, so definitely use this as much as you possibly can. Always use it over Dawnbreaker, unless you don't have enough to cast this. Very, very powerful. Big ad pulls are going to be incredibly short-lived, especially with the amount of AoE damage that you do with this build. Now, we're going to go into passives. These are quite straightforward. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly because I don't want to bore people too much with the details, but I also don't want to miss too many of them. So, you are going to need to get all of these to start with. This increases your critical damage with an Adric Spear ability slotted. So, crit damage is increased on the back bar and the front bar for having these two skills, one on each. Also, don't forget this will increase the damage you do for blocking targets. This will give you minor protection every time you use an Adric Spear ability. So this is really simple. Activate some jabs, you got minor protection. Activate a spear, you got minor protection. You get the idea. Basically, apart from execute, you've got that passive all the time. Burn and Light was changed. This has changed to generating stacks now. So when you deal damage, any damage, by the way, you generate stacks of damage up to 4 of them within 3 seconds. So all you need to do basically is do dot ticks and it's done. Over those 4 stacks, once they hit there, they will go pop and you will damage the target. And this obviously can happen once every half a second, which means you can actually stack 3 of them within a 1.5 second period. It can be very dramatic. The more dots you stack, the more damage you're obviously ticking over and doing. The more hits you do, the more this will fire. It's very, very fast now. It was before every 4 hits it will fire 1. Now it's every 4 stacks, but not just Adric Spear abilities. Any abilities. Also, increases your weapon and spell damage by 6% and your physical and spell resistance. So we're tankier and we hit harder. Dawn's Wrath, obviously very important. This increases the duration of certain abilities in the skill line. This will allow you ultimate once every 6 seconds for casting those abilities from that skill line, including your Jesus Beam and Purifying Light. This will give minor sorcery to you and your entire group. So this wasn't shown at the very beginning, but if you look at the stats, you'll notice that my weapon and spell damage was 5.3, and now as you can see it's where's it gone? Need to fire this. Where have you gone? One of those. There we go. It's now 5.6. We put our glyph on from our wall of elements. Obviously that's going to be a little different as well. That's actually going to put us up to, come on, fire, 6.3. So we'll buff some bonuses from your group if you're taking advantage of maybe dummy bonuses for example, from your group, because they're going to have those as well. Again, you are sitting quite high, 7.2. Really, really high stuff if you stack them. But again, this is for your whole group, and you're the one that brings it. So really, really handy. Anytime you use Purifying Light or a Jesus Beam, your group will get buffed. It reduces health, magicka, and stamina cost, and ultimate cost of all of your abilities. So everything we do is cheaper. This is really important. Increases your healing effects from Restore and Light abilities by up to 12% based on the severity of the target's wound. So the lower your health, the stronger your abilities will heal you. Standing in your rune focus, or this here, will actually give you minor mending. So before we would stand in this, and then if we stood out of it, we would lose it. Well, if we stand in this big AoE here and this, one or the other, doesn't matter, we get this all the time. Bigger healing for us. So while jabs did heal less in this particular update, while standing in this, we heal more. So that helps a hell of a lot. And of course, you increase the amount of damage you can block. Now, this obviously does last 4 seconds unless you stay in it. As soon as you leave these areas, the 4 seconds will then run off unless you recast them. When you heal an ally under 50% health with Restore and Light ability, you grant them 2 ultimate. This actually does apply to us because if they take a synergy from this, they will heal. So they will gain ultimate for doing so. Increases your resurrection speed as well, so we can res people very, very fast. As a Templar, you get Soul Gem back as well if you're lucky. Destro Staff stuff, obviously we do need these because we are utilizing the Destro Staff on the back bar. The heavy attack we're not really utilizing unless you need to for recovery, so it's not the end of the world, but just so you know what happens, if you have a lightning staff and you heavy attack with it, you will splash damage all surrounding enemies for 100% of the damage done. That does now include all buffs, bonuses, and everything that applies to that heavy, including crits. You can't crit in AoE with a heavy attack from a lightning staff, but you can crit the main target and apply that damage elsewhere. Heavy attacks from a flame staff, however, if you're using them, are single target. They just deal a bit more damage than their base, but remember they could crit or not crit, so it could be duff. Now, this will increase your pen on a Destro staff. This will increase your chance to apply status effects. By the way, this is with light attacks, heavy attacks, or Destro skills. This is very handy on the back bar, but we won't get it on the front bar, but we do have charged weapons, so that's fine anyway. An Inferno Staff will increase damage done to single target abilities only, while a Lightning Staff will increase all area of effect damage abilities. That does include Puncture and Sweep, so if you do choose to use a Lightning Staff on the front bar for this build, which is a variation choice, then of course that will do more damage. When you kill an enemy with a Destro Staff ability, you'll get 3,600 Magicka back. That's also helpful. The second part of that, by the way, is irrelevant because obviously that's for ice staves, but this bonus only applies to you if you're holding the staff, as do all of them. You must be on the back bar to benefit from any of these bonuses. You will need dual wield passive, but you won't need this one because this is about cost reduction. We're not using any skills here. We're only using free abilities, so lights and heavy attacks. This will increase the damage of those at low health. This will give you extra damage flat out. This will increase the damage against targets that are CC'd, and this will give you a bonus depending on the weapon types you're holding. We are using one sword for 142 weapon and spell damage, and we're using one dagger for 812 crit chance. Those two combined did actually top out for the overall build, but if you've got a combination of any of those, it doesn't really matter. It's not the end of the world. Just put them on, use them for now, and optimize later. Now, we are using 4 pieces of light so that we can take advantage of snare effectiveness, reduction to sprint cost, a little bit of magic recovery and reduction to cost. Of course, that's important. Penetration and resistances are key for this particular build, so we have obviously taken advantage of that, and crit chance. But the medium armor, because we're using 3 instead of 2 that most people would normally use, we get the extra crit damage bonus, we get recovery to stamina, which is great for CC and using our beast trap. We end up with sneak reduction, which is meh. Weapon and spell damage increase, and of course increases movement speed, so we're quite quick, and we get dodge roll reduction to cost. So our CC bar, our stamina bar, is really, really healthy. Good recovery, reduction to cost, dodge roll's cheaper, but we do get flat damage bonuses as well. So we've got a combination of crit and pen, and flat damage and crit damage. Fighters Guild, of course, you do want to take advantage of Intimidate and Present to get Beast Trap down. The cost is cheaper now. If you kill anything with Fighters Guild abilities on your bar, you'll get 3 ultimate back, so make sure you get the kills on the front bar. And of course, every Fighters Guild ability will give you 3% increase to weapon and spell damage for being there. We've got Beast Trap on the front, we've got Dawnbreaker on the front. Those two give us that bonus. You do want to take advantage of this because you'll increase your Fighters Guild ability damage by 10%, so Beast Trap is stronger, as is Dawnbreaker. But if you do decide to go to PvP for whatever reason, although this build is not designed for that, you'll do double that damage against players. Mage's Guild, obviously you do want to take advantage of these. This will reduce the cost of the abilities. We're technically not using any apart from the ultimate, and it doesn't affect that. This will increase the duration of Mage's Guild abilities. It does affect the duration of the dot after the meteor lands. This will increase your maximum magicka and recovery for each of these skills on your bar. So the back bar, we actually get that twice. On the front bar, we get that once. And if you activate a Mage's Guild ability, including your ultimate, you will increase your heavy attack damage by 80% against PvE enemies for the next 10 seconds. So if you do need to heavy attack, you will do more damage with it. That's just after a meteor cast, or if you cast Inner Light for whatever reason. Do we really need it? Not necessarily, but it does fill the gap if you are trying to get resources back. For your stamina side anyway, because if you cast Magicka and then you try and heavy attack, you just spent the stuff you want back. You get the idea though. So, Undaunted, every single synergy you take will give you resources back. It'll keep you in the fight. It'll give you a heal. It'll give you Magicka and stamina. Take them. They help. And this increases your maximum stamina, health, and Magicka based on how many different types of armor you are wearing. We are wearing 3 pieces of medium and 4 pieces of light. So 2 different types. There's your bonus. We don't need any of that. We are, of course, a high elf. No, you're not tied to high elf. You can pick any race in the game you prefer. It's not going to make or break it. It's up to you entirely. But the high elf did have some very nice passives that did optimize the build very, very slightly. So if you activate an ability with your larger bar, your lower bar will gain 625 resources towards it once every 6 seconds. So any Magicka ability we use, every 6 seconds, we'll get stamina back. And when you're casting a channeled ability, which counts as our puncture and sweeps or our Jesus beam, you will take 5% less damage. So we have heals, survivability, resistances, recovery, buffs and bonuses, cleanses, all that kind of stuff going constantly. But while we're channeling either of these abilities, we also take less damage. We have 2,000 Magicka and one big bonus that is actually across multiple different races, so you don't have to just pick the high elf for this, but we've got 258 weapon and spell damage as well. These are very flat bonuses with flat survival and flat damage, but we do have the resource gain to our other bar, which is really helpful in CC situations as well. Make sure you get medicinal use because your potions last longer. If they ran out, put it on again. Do not let your potions run out. They're consumable buffs. You need them. Keep them running. If you use potions just when you're low, you're doing it wrong. Now, we're going to go into the gear. This may or may not be a surprise for most of you. So, that number, by the way, is accurate at the moment. The Maelstrom weapon is bugged, so we are lacking about 5 or 6k DPS. Same here as well. So once that's fixed on the 6th of September, which we may already be in if you're watching this video, the Maelstrom weapon will be back to normal or working as intended, and we'll basically get double damage out of it. So it's bonkers. It does work currently on the back bar. It doesn't work currently on the front bar, but it will, so don't worry. Anyway, we are using the same setup as before, but the skills are slightly different and the rotation is slightly different. So you can skip this part if you want, but sword and dagger of overwhelming, flame and poison glyphs. Maelstrom weapon on the back bar, with an increased weapon and spell damage of 452 because obviously it's infused. It's very strong. Make sure you get the max level glyph for that. The pen bonus doesn't matter, so you can get this on normal. Go with lightning. I misexplained it in the skills section, but then maybe not, because this is going to be a couple of options here. So you want to make sure that it's a flame staff if you've got off balance in your group. You want to make sure it's a lightning staff if you don't have off balance in your group. But your glyphs on the front bar, if you're using dual wield, will need to change. So if you're using a flame staff, make sure you have a flame glyph on the front. If you're using a lightning staff, make sure you have a lightning glyph on the front. That way you can cover the off balance. But if you choose to use a lightning staff on your front bar, which is still a valid choice, the overwhelming lightning staff instead of dual wield, if you choose to do that, then you want a weapon and spell damage glyph, this one here, on the front, and you want a damage glyph on the back. So lightning staff on the front with weapon and spell damage, lightning staff on the back with a shock glyph, or flame staff on the back bar with a flame glyph. So fire, lightning, weapon and spell damage. The only reason these are different is because obviously we can take advantage of a higher uptime with this, whereas if you're trying to supply off balance or flat damage with 2 Destro staffs, then it's a lot easier to maintain a very high damage glyph with having it on the back bar with infused. That is explained in other videos, and it will be on the charts on the written guide, just in case that's confusing. Zan or any other monster set, Alambris, Grothdard, Jeff, they're all absolutely amazing. Jeff, by the way, is more of the Inferno. They are all very close damage output wise. This did give you more crit chance. It did give you more single target sometimes, but it's hit and miss. It's entirely up to you which ones you choose to use. Some may be more favorable than others for some players. Some are very cool visually. So if you want to just go with cool visual effects, go with what you like. There's not much in it. But Zan, medium, mask and shoulder. If you want to go with 4 medium, which is risky. But generally speaking, you want to go with 1 light if you can. So we'll save this build out because I've already got it fitted. So 1 medium, 1 light in any order. We've got 2 medium on our body pieces. We're using Reliquin. You do not need Perfected. Perfected gives you more stamina. We're not utilizing stamina as a main resource. If you have it, great. You've got more stuff to dodge roll with. But if you don't, you're not going to see any damage difference whatsoever. This does not contribute towards your damage. Crit chance, minus slayer, and it builds up wins if you can maintain your light attacks. Very simple. Don't let your light attacks fall off. You must fire one at least every 5 seconds. If you do so, your weapon and spell damage will contribute towards the strength of this proc, and it will be very powerful. Just maintain that during mechanics, by the way. If you have to go backwards, way out of the way, and you can't reach a melee anymore, use your back bar staff to light attack with, or front if you are using a lightning staff on the front. Overwhelming needs to be on the body as well, but you need to make sure 2 pieces of Reliquin are present so that you can take advantage of them on the jewelry. So 3 jewelry Reliquin, 2 body Reliquin, Zan or any monster set of your choice on the helmet and shoulders, and Overwhelming on the rest, while the 2 other Overwhelming pieces are the weapons. Now, the other variation is exactly the same, but instead of using Reliquin, you take a Zerblight from normal dungeons, normal Lair of Marslock, jewelry, and 2 body pieces, and job done. Again, this or this can be light, or you can go with medium if you've got loads and loads of resources. It's up to you. I would recommend 4 light, 3 medium. But if you're feeling really risky and you think you can manage your sustainability, then of course you can go with 4 medium if you prefer. But just bear in mind, obviously, pen bonuses will be slightly different because you won't have that extra pen buff from your light armor piece that you take on off. Hopefully that isn't too confusing. But anyway, the reason for the Azure Blight is quite simple. If you're using Reliquin, obviously that's a bit more advanced and that is single target. Bear in mind, everything can be farmed on normal. Maelstrom, Lair of Masterlock, Cloud Rest, all of it can be farmed on normal, but the monster helmet will have to be on vet. And if we activate this for a moment, while Reliquin does really, really nice single target, you can enhance your single target with the AoE build because the surrounding enemies contribute towards the one you're hitting. Because every single one of these turn into a bomb. And it kind of looks like this. 3, 2, 1, bang. So, it's up to you, really. You can use this variant, or you can use the other variant. But just bear in mind that this one is very, very, very powerful when it comes to add stacks. Every single one turns into a bomb, so while you may get 94 to 100k on single target with the Azure Blight version, with the Maelstrom weapon fixed, by the way, you could get potentially a lot more damage on that target because the surrounding ones are hurting it as well. So the choice is yours. I would preference the Azure Blight one in most situations, but just bear in mind that particular set is very unique in that it does make every single target have a 20 stack tick and explode with a 2-second cooldown, but the stacks contribute towards the overall proc from multiple sources. So it's not you put this on and another player puts it on and 2 booms go off. You both contribute to the same one. So if 2 of you are using Azure Blight, you both stack it up much, much faster, and then it goes off as a shared boom. That does really, really help, but don't oversaturate it. Anything more than 3 of these in a group is overkill. So that's why with this particular build, I've recommended in the past that if you're using more than 2 of them, so 2 is actually sufficient, put the other one in Alkosh. They can take the synergies all day long and debuff everything. The tank just needs to stab stuff, and everybody else blows everything up in the room. Champion points. This is going to be surprising for most. If you haven't seen this already, in fact, we'll get the sheet up here. There we go. 106, quite nice. Just bear in mind here, we are hitting 2% off of crit damage cap there. So we don't need any more crit damage. Bear in mind again, the Maelstrom weapon is broken there. That is why we do not have Backstabber and we do not have Fighting Finesse, because we will overcap our crit damage, which means we are not cheesing that by standing behind of it and always assuming that our numbers are the same because we'll always be standing behind a target, because we won't be. We'll be fighting a dragon sometimes. Wherever you stand, you'll do the same amount. This was very nice and did contribute towards lots of damage, but it didn't quite balance out to be enough. While it would make some single target skills and AoE skills do more damage, this one slotted instead did more overall by about 1 or 2k. So there's not a lot in it, but we're going to ignore these. So while you can get these crit bonuses here to give you more crit chance, you don't actually have to unlock any of these. You don't need them. Unlock these to unlock these little nodes here and do it all in your own time, but you want to aim for your slottables first. So go here, put 10 points in this, and go out again. Yes, you can fill that in your own time. But while you've got this unlocked, you want to slot all 4 of these. Increase single target damage, increase damage over time, so single target and AoE damage over time. Increase any direct damage, whether it be single or AoE. Yes, your jabs do count. And increase area of effect damage, which does contribute to all the AoE damage over time we're doing on the ground, contributes towards our jabs, and also contributes towards Azure Blight if you're using it. Both variations of the build, whether they're using Dagger and Sword or Lightning, whether you're using Reliquin or Azure Blight, all topped out. Both of them even topped out with these 4 slottables versus any other combination. So go nuts. Now, slot these 3, nice and simple: health, armor, and recovery. Come over to here, put 15 points into this. Go into here and put 10 points into this. And then go here and put 10 points into this. Or max it if you want the health bonus. Then get Siphon and Spells, because every single kill you get, which will be a lot, will give you 1.5k Magicka back. The rest of them can all be done in your own time. There's no rush. You will get there eventually. But your slottables are the most important. Now, this tree really doesn't matter, because these are not really going to benefit you in combat. However, if you want to spend your points and get something out of it, go for here so your weapon enchants don't get consumed so quickly, and then max out this so you've got Treasure Hunter, which will give you higher quality loot from chests, which everybody likes. Get this here, which will give you faster movement speed if you are not in combat, so you can go from one fight to the next nice and quick, especially if you're going for speed runs. Rationer will increase the duration of your food, so expensive stuff is no longer so much of a expense because it will last a bit longer. And of course you can use this, which will make you use, if you're lucky, less potions and still benefit from them. Now the rotation. Now before, it was quite simple. It was a 10-second rotation. Some people found it too fast because obviously the game was designed in such a manner that micromanaging your abilities is quite important. But what they've done is try to make it so that you use less actions per minute. So they've made things a lot more simpler. They've made light attacks not quite so substantial, although there is a big gap between the two, but not as much as it was before. So before, if you could light weave, as in skill, light, skill, light, skill, light, you would get a substantial amount of damage more than somebody else that couldn't. Now, the abilities are longer. They are designed slightly differently. And while most people wouldn't have noticed it, most people necessarily didn't try without weaving. So if you now try and use a build that requires lots of light attacks, excluding with Reliquin setups, obviously, because that does need it, and then take the light attacks away, and I don't mean just by numbers, I mean physically do it, you will see that there is less than 25% difference between somebody that can actively press the right skills in a rotation versus someone that can actively press the right skills and light weave between. It depends on the build, obviously, but if you light attack, you get ultimate recovery, you get your glyphs firing off, you get the light attack damage, you get all these different extra bonuses. So that means you can use your ulti more often, etc, etc, etc. If you never ever do a light attack, you're never getting any ulti regen apart from your passives. You never fire on your front bar glyphs unless you're using a weapon skill. And you're not going to get the extra damage from it. From testing, it was shown and demonstrated and proven that a player with less skill will get less DPS, but they will get far more than they ever did in the past. Before, if you couldn't light weave, you're probably going to do about 10 to 20k DPS and you wonder what the hell's going on. Now, if you can't, still doesn't really matter, but practice it nonetheless, you will improve. So the gap there is between a newer player versus a very experienced player, and that is the difference. There is still reward for being very, very skilled, but there is not such a detriment at the floor side of things if you haven't got a clue what you're doing, as far as this stuff is concerned. Anyway, this is what you need to do. Beast Trap needs to be down, resistance buff needs to be up. That's quite simple, that's a given. That gives you the crit bonus, this gives you your survival and your heals. Then, Spear, Ritual, Wall, Swap. You can swap this around if you want. You can do Wall first, and then Ritual after, and then Swap. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter, but those three skills need to be down. Fire that, light attack, Ritual, light attack, Wall, Swap bars. On your front bar, you want to light attack, Purifying Light. And then you want to jab 5 times with a light attack after each one or before each one. So light attack jabs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, normally I would tell you to light attack, Beast Trap, swap. But Beast Trap lasts 20 seconds now. So you don't need to do that. You can if you want, because you'll get the initial pop, and it will maintain the buff. Up to you. But if you light attack, Power the Light, swap, or Purifying Light, then go back bar, spear, wall, swap. Now, why did I miss out this? Because that lasts 20 seconds, and these last 10. So, front bar rotation, since Beast Trap is already running, we'll have Purifying Light at the beginning, loads and loads of jabs, Purifying Light at the end. Back bar will have spear and a wall, and go back to the front again. Now, maintain more jabs, you just keep spamming them, and then as soon as Purifying Light runs out, recast it. Keep an eye on the target, it only lasts 6 seconds. Your second rotation, light Beast Trap swap, light spear, you will place Ritual this time, you will place wall, and you will place your Purifying. So, to simplify that, because we're going to go over a very easy version instead in a moment, you basically, instead of using Beast Trap swap every rotation, one rotation, Purifying Light swap, second rotation, Beast Trap swap. The spams stay the same, you still put 5 in. On the back bar, every rotation you use Spear Shards and Wall, but every second rotation you introduce the Ritual. And that's it, you alternate them. Don't worry, I'll put it on the website. Now at execute, all you really need to do is light, beast trap, swap, wall, swap. Maintain that trap, maintain that wall. Your glyph will continuously fire. Your crit bonus will be there all the time. If you want to squeeze in ritual, you can, but don't overdo it. Light, beast trap, swap, light, wall, swap. Jesus beam your ass off for 10 seconds. Basically 8 seconds, so 4 casts. Do that over and over and over and over. As soon as it's run out, on the back bar, your wall's going to go boom, reapply it, carry on. That's your execute. Now, if that is too confusing, if you can't alternate beast trap every second rotation, if you can't alternate purifying light every second rotation, if you can't alternate this every second rotation, don't worry. You can still stick to the previous rotation. It's almost exactly the same. And that would be to put purifying light on first, 5 jabs, beast trap swap, spear shards, purify or cleanse and ritual even, ritual retribution, and then wall, and then start again and repeat. The difference is if you micromanage your purifying light to just activate it whenever it runs out, you can pretty much fire it sometimes twice on the front bar rotation, sometimes once, but it depends on you as a player and your content. But you can get more damage out of it. But you can still crack way over 100k, keeping exactly the same rotation as the past version of the build. Just make sure that you don't apply this more than once every second. So you can alternate per rotation with Beast Trap and Purifying Light and maintain this as and when you can. Or you can keep the rotation exactly the same as it always was without changing a bloody thing, except for only cast that every second one. So hopefully that isn't too confusing. If it is confusing, don't worry, it is going to be on the website. But if you want some extra help with that, go into your options, go down to combat. Now you want to make sure that buffs and bonuses are shown. So buffs and debuffs. You can show your own buffs, other people's buffs, whatever. If you optimize this to your liking, you'll be able to see Purifying Light on the target and you'll be able to count it. But at the same time, if you got to here and put ability timers on both back bar and front bar, you will be able to see the timers of your skills when you activate them. So as you can see here, my Beast Trap there has 17 seconds left on it. I really only need to reapply it when it is run out. Or I can reapply it and take advantage of the initial pop. On the back bar, my Wall of Elements, you see I'll swap. You can see a yellow bar there going down slowly. That will basically be the timer for your back bar skill, so you know when to go back and swap it again. So before you had to mental time it, now you can keep an eye on them physically. Again, let's keep this simple. Beast Trap needs to be down, resistance buff needs to be down. Spear, ritual, wall, Purifying Light, jab, jab, jab 5 times. Beast Trap swap, spear, wall, don't cast ritual, Purifying Light, jab, 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 jab. Beast Trap swap. This time we do need ritual because it's about to run out. And continue. That's the easy way to do it. The more difficult way is to track Purifying Light and use it every second rotation twice. If you do that, you will get more damage, but it's minimal. It's only about 2 or 3k DPS. You won't notice it in most content, but if you want to be a little bit more advanced, you can. Anyway, once these finish exploding, see that? Big booms. Once they finish doing that, we're going to go into fashion. Because that's the most important part, and that's the stuff people only really care about. So, we are using Evil Raiden. We are using the Seisei Light Hat. We are using the Pyre Watch Curious, which is heavy. Greymore Heavy Shoulders. Moongrave Fane Heavy Hands. Dramathra Light Belt. Thieves Guild Heavy Pants. Those are the combat pants. And Greymore Heavy Feet. We are using on our main hand, technically on my live server, on my main server, I use Molekina swords because they look mega and they zappy. But for the time being, we are using Anilarch's Chosen Swords and we are using the Ebon Shadow Staff. Now, the colors we're using are quite simple. We're using this green here to give it the Raiden kind of color, which is drowned cobalt green. We are also using this brass ability somewhere. Where's it gone? Antique Brass. And finally, the last color is clearly just black. Again, that will be on the website so you can see exactly where these are supposed to go and you can duplicate it if you want. So thank you very much for watching. I know that may seem a little bit confusing, but with the website guide alongside this, hopefully it's not. This is incredibly powerful in all situations. There's no content it cannot do, whether it's solo or group or trial or hard modes or even no deaths, all that kind of stuff. You want to go for any achievements in the game, there's nothing this can't do. Just depends on whether you can adapt to it or not. Is it your playstyle? Did you like it? Did you not? Comment in the section below. Thank you very much for watching. And if you are not subscribing, of course, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the info section for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the website xynodegaming.com, where all the written guides are, including this one, and you can sign up to Patreon and help support the channel financially by getting some shiny perks in return, including the private Discord channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.